Wow. Hi, guys.
Hey guys, welcome to the Labyrinth of Thought podcast. My name's Bryden Cardillo, and I'm so glad to see you guys here. Different setting right here. We're in my basement. You guys haven't seen me in here before. It's because we're in the middle of lockdown. The first few episodes were recorded before, whereas this one had to be done completely over Zoom because we don't have studio access. As far as how things have been going in my world, they've been pretty good. I've gotten to see my dad since COVID. He's doing really well, so I'm super damn happy about that. Getting my first semester of school done, which is freaking exciting. Hearing back from university soon. So yeah, there's a lot of change in my world. It's been good change, and I'm happy that it's been good change, because coming off the tail end of some not so good stuff. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I hope that you guys are doing well, because this is not a super easy time. With regards to that, our guest today is Carolyn Murton. She is a mental health nurse who specialized in child and youth mental health. Over her career, she's worked with both inpatient settings and outpatient settings as a therapist. That means that she's worked in hospitals, directly one-on-one with patients, and she's also done psychotherapy. So without further ado, my conversation with Carolyn was amazing, and I can't wait for you guys to listen to it. On today's episode of Labyrinth of Thought, I welcome you, Carolyn Murton. Labyrinth of thought, I'm coming through your eyes. This is Labyrinth of Thought. It's a podcast where we talk to people about things. Labyrinth of Thought. Three, two, one, we're going. All right.
Okay.
Hello, Carolyn. How are you doing today?
Hi, Bryden. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been a good day. Haven't gotten nearly as much schoolwork done as I wanted to this morning, but I was kind of getting ready for this, and I figured that this took precedent just for today because I'm really excited to record this episode.
Schoolwork is always going to call you.
It's always going to. So to start, I'm a tough guy. This lockdown, yeah, sure, I'm alone. But, I'm resilient. I'm just going to tough it out. I feel sad. Screw that. It's BS. It's nothing. Right? I'm a tough guy. I'm going to make it through this without feeling anything, right?
Are you? That's interesting.
Well, is that maintainable? Am I going to be able to do that?
Yeah, you are. You're going to make it through this because this too shall pass. This is a temporary time, and this is something that we are all going to get through, but it's not that easy. It's not easy, is it?
No.
It's hard.
It hasn't been easy for me. I can definitely say that.
Yeah. It hasn't been easy for a lot of people, and really, we live in, I would say, one of the very best countries in the world, and we are all still trying to survive what is a time that is so unique to history, and it's so different than what we're used to. And so we are all trying to manage what is a new norm, and that's really hard because we know how to live our lives on a day-to-day basis. At least we came to know how to do it, but now this is different, and everything that we knew, we have to try to find a new way of thinking about it in order to manage the more intense emotions that sometimes come up more because we are alone more.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're alone more, that can lead to really intense feelings that we can't ignore. We have to experience
Yeah.
because they're there and we don't have as many distractions.
So how do we experience those intense emotions without letting them take us over, without letting them glue us to the couch, I guess you could say?
Yeah. Everybody's going to have a different answer to that, and everybody's going to have their own way. And so there's no absolute right or wrong. There's no perfect answer to that. There are different ways of coping that we all have to try and figure out for ourselves what fits with who I am, what fits with who you are, what gives our life meaning.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what's important to us and how to manage is going to be determined by what's meaningful in our life, and trying to achieve small goals, not big goals, small goals. They can lead to bigger goals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so by achieving small goals, what I hear is something along the lines of making every day a little bit better than the last. That's what I think about when I hear that.
Okay.
Would that be, what would your approach to small goals be?
Oh, there's the whole acronym of SMART goals and that sort of thing, where they're specific and measurable and attainable and realistic and timely. So, you've probably heard about that.
I have.
But I think of it as more, what would you look back on at the end of your day and say, yeah, I feel good about that.
Gotcha.
I accomplished something that is meaningful to me, even if it's just, I got some homework done.
Mm-hmm.
I read a book. I walked my dog. Again, to individuals, it's going to be different depending on what means something to you.
For sure. Yeah. And it's weird because it's like, there's something weird about these lockdowns. I found it a lot in the last lockdown. And in this one, not so much, because I've had the podcast to work on and it has taken up a lot of my time, and school has too.
Yeah.
But I can imagine for a lot of people that it feels like you have all the time on earth, but simultaneously as well, you're acting as if you don't, or you're not utilizing that time in a way that is effective. And that, I know for me, it's led me to certain places where like I get very down on myself because I'm like, wow, look at this. I have all the time in the world and I'm just procrastinating with it,
Mm-hmm.
So like,
isn't it lovely to be able to procrastinate sometimes?
it can feel
Isn't
good.
that
Yeah.
a nice feeling?
Mm-hmm.
There's procrastination has a negative connotation to it, but to be able to put something off until you're in a better space to be able to do it in a way that you want to do it, to be able to enjoy having time to just be and not be doing or thinking or accomplishing, but just to be. It takes you to a place within yourself that allows you to perhaps be more in touch with yourself.
Gotcha. Yeah. So maybe it would be appropriate to say that, like, in our non-lockdown lives, if you want to call them that, I think I touched on this in my first episode with Lanny, but we spend so much time doing stuff that we don't get any time with ourselves. So when we do take time with ourselves, when we start seeing things that come up, they start to freak us out a bit. So what can we do when those aspects of ourselves that we didn't used to get to see because we were so busy? What do we do when they start coming up and we don't know how to deal with them? If that's our depression or really any neurotic tendency.
I think it's an interesting time, and as a teenager, you're in a space and time where you are developing who you are. You're figuring that out, and there's no end result to that. You continue your entire life kind of figuring out how you want to be in the world and to have some unique kind of sense of who you are. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to kind of just be able to sit back and kind of say, okay, so this is interesting. I'm experiencing emotions that I've never experienced, or I haven't given a lot of thought to, and they feel pretty overwhelming. But so what? These emotions are normal. All emotions are normal. They may be more positive or more negative in terms of how we think of them, but emotions are a normal part of the human body, the human mind. And so to be able to have the luxury of time to recognize what you're experiencing and trying to understand it, there's beauty in that.
Yeah.
As much as you may not want to feel those things because they're hard sometimes.
Yeah. No, it's very tough to sit there. I know for me, when especially recently, when I've been able to feel some of those negative emotions coming on to me, it's very easy to react rather than respond. I think was an analogy that was an analogy that I heard. I was actually listening to another podcast. It was Russell Brand's podcast this morning, and he had a guest on who was a Holocaust survivor, and she was talking about the difference between responding and reacting. Reacting being the you start feeling it coming on, you freak out, you go, oh my God, I'm getting depressed again, like something like that, you know? Whereas like responding is, I guess, what you're talking about. So how can we like respond better, more appropriately, maybe in a way that's kinder to ourselves?
I like that term. I like the idea of responding with kindness to yourself, because it's important that we look after ourselves as well as we would look after anybody else that we love. And we often don't do that. We're very good, as you and I have discussed, at looking after other people and giving other people advice. But when it comes to ourselves, we don't often apply the same gentle approach. And so I think that's an important thing to consider, is how can I be kind to myself? How can I be gentle? How can I recognize the emotions that I'm experiencing and not necessarily label them as good or bad, just as normal emotions? It would be normal to feel lonely in times when you are by yourself a lot. Because you are alone. But does that necessarily have to lead to feelings of loneliness when it's just being alone? And being okay with being your own company, you know, and liking yourself, being able to recognize, you know, you might give all sorts of positive messages to other people that you care about. You know, you might give them all sorts of positive feedback, but do you ever give yourself that same message? You know, you're really sweet, you're really fun, you're really caring, you're really whatever it is. Do you give that message to yourself? And how important is that? Because essentially you are the person that you are going to be living with for the rest of your life.
I like that a lot.
No. And the older you get, the more time you're gonna have with yourself. So you better like that person.
It's tough to give yourself an eviction notice, you know? So what are some things that like people my age, or maybe within a few years of my age, what are some exercises, techniques, whatever, what are things that we can start doing to realize that we love ourselves? Come to that realization.
Well, one of your previous guests talked about sticky notes. Sticky notes are a wonderful way of just, putting little notes around on your mirror and your refrigerator, on your whatever you see on a fairly regular basis. And, just kind of notes of kindness, notes of self-worth, and things that you want to internalize. And it may seem kind of hokey to begin with.
Yeah.
But, the more you see them, the more you internalize them, and the more you start to internalize them and say them and use them as a mantra, then that can help you to own them and not have them out there on a certain other surface, but to take those concepts in and hold them as something that you truly believe about yourself. Brainstorming is another really good thing for people to do in terms of being able to think about the things that are going to make you feel good, the things that are going to help you to feel your best self. And again, brainstorming, you're going to brainstorm 10 different things that I'm going to brainstorm. There may be some commonalities. We may agree that nature is something that we appreciate and enjoy. As I'm sitting here, I'm looking out 2 windows on either side of me and seeing a beautiful snowfall come down. So I look forward to going for a walk with my dog. I look forward to going for a hike in the woods, those sorts of things. That would be on my brainstorming list of things that make me feel true to myself and good and happy. For you, it might be racing down a ski hill. I enjoy that too, but we're all going to be different in terms of those things.
Yeah, it's like I guess you could say it's what do you prioritize the most would be a good question to ask yourself, maybe.
Yeah. But don't impose limits on it.
Okay.
Sometimes the crazier the idea, the better, because it opens your mind to not just the things that you do every day anyway. It's like, what if I could do anything I wanted? What might that look like?
Well, then,
so
yeah. Okay,
be
so
curious with yourself.
I have to ask then, Carolyn, I think that the only thing that's going to make me happy is if I have $1 million right now. So is that a realistic thing to make me happy, or is that?
No, because you're still going to be in lockdown.
Gotcha. So what, like, I think where I'm kind of trying to get at with that is like, you always hear like the classical, or there's this like idea that's pretty prevalent that's like, just because you're rich doesn't mean you're happy, or just because you have a lot of things doesn't mean you're happy. So I feel like at my age, for some people, not so much myself, but I'd imagine that other people my age think that stuff might make them happy. I know I saw a poll somewhere, I feel like it was on Instagram, forget who posted it, but it was a mental health poll, just asking people like, how many people go online shopping when they're sad? And it was something like staggeringly huge. So like, how do we find more fulfilling things to bring us out of those dark places? More fulfilling things than, say, material items or superficial.
Yeah. I'm sure you've experienced yourself that when the reinforcers in our life are external, they're short-lived.
Yeah.
That new whatever that arrived at your door, you got it, you say, cool, it came, I like it, great, put it away, use it for whatever purpose you used it for. but it doesn't enrich us within ourselves.
Yeah.
Riches are not anything that determines our self-worth.
No.
So it's the things that help us determine our self-worth. It's helping others, like what you're doing. You know, this podcast is designed to help others cope with the challenges of being an adolescent, but also living in unusual times.
For sure. Yeah.
Helping others is a tremendous thing in order to be able to build your sense of self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to build your resilience to handle different things in your life, whatever those different things might be. And we all have had our share of challenges, and we will continue to have our share of challenges because life is messy.
Mm-hmm.
Life is not, the goal is not to have a perfect life.
For sure.
The idea is to live your life to the fullest. At least my idea is to live my life to the fullest and be able to experience everything that I experience with the utmost commitment to it, and pleasure and pain and everything that comes, is to experience it, because that's going to give me the tools in my toolkit that's going to help me cope with the next time something, when those emotions come up again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question.
I forget exactly what I said word for word.
Oh, good. So do I.
Along the words of material items. So yeah. No, you did a really good job at answering that. And you raised a really interesting point too, is to experience everything to its fullest. So within that, you said experience pain to its fullest, which is something that I think, I know myself included and my friends don't like to do, because pain freaking sucks. And, you know, there have been times I know with myself, when I'm having very mindful moments, I can watch that pain come through me and go, this is actually more interesting than it is painful. Or this is, like, I can see it as a feeling, almost like, it's almost like taking a cold shower. You can watch your body feel the cold from the shower, and understand that your body's telling you that it's something that's gonna, that it's your body's acting like you're in danger, when in reality that whatever it is, 5 minutes under cold water is completely harmless to you. So how do we help show ourselves that these emotions can be completely harmless and almost constructive, if anything?
Nobody's going to ask for pain to be a part of their life, physical pain, emotional pain. Nobody wants that, truly. And it's how do you make the best of a situation? It's making cranberry juice out of lemons.
You like that one?
I did like that.
I think I saw that on like Instagram or something. I don't know where I saw that. It was a while ago. But yeah, it's taking something, I guess, that does not look like something that looks bad, such as cranberries, and making lemonade out of them, which is something that is better. Yeah. So, like, sorry, I kind of feel like I kind of got lost on where we were. I think we might both be.
Well, we're busy making cranberry juice, and we're learning to manage emotions and to fully appreciate them, because they're telling us something. If you experience emotional pain, it's usually because something is happening to you or happening within your life that means that you're losing something or someone, or it's the opposite of joy. But in order to experience the pain, you have to know what joy is like.
Yeah.
And so they are they're the opposite sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
But they have to exist together. You can't just you throw a coin up in the air and it's not always going to turn up heads. It's random. I believe in random things in life. I know people have different perspectives on that, but it's helped me in my life to believe that some things happen just, it's random luck, random bad luck, random situations. But I know that if I'm dealing with a difficult emotion, I'm capable of handling that just as I am capable of handling any other intense emotion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so being able to experience things and to know that you're going to learn something from it. You're going to build your sense of ability to cope. Mm-hmm. And you're going to become a stronger individual. You know, those people, I feel sorry for those people who really have had, you know, the perfect life. Everything has gone easily for them. There's been no family issues. There's been no challenges in terms of health issues. Those people are going to hit a wall because you're just not going to go through life like that. That's not going to be the norm. The norm is to hit walls and to do all sorts of things or have things happen, and you grow from all of those experiences. And as much as you may not want to be in a portion of your life where you're growing from a painful experience, you kind of have to appreciate that, okay, I can fight it. I can choose not to feel this way, but no, you can't.
No.
So embracing it and saying, I feel this way because I love someone, or, you know, I'm worried because I care. Mm-hmm. It's those opposites that hold us, and finding that place in the middle where we are contained and able to manage the intensity of life.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I like that a lot. That kind of got my brain thinking on got me thinking on something that we had chatted about last week in our pre-interview conversation. So you had mentioned that a lot of depression or anxiety are continual patterns. They're continuous patterns of, say, a certain feeling that compounds itself. So I know, with that knowledge, I know that for myself, there might be one thing that happens that might kind of set the ball rolling, or just...
We call those triggers.
Yeah, so trigger. Okay, so that trigger happens, and then, say, whatever that feeling is, it's been a day or two or something, and you forget what triggered it. What can you do in that situation? Because I've forgotten what's triggered a lot of stuff in my life.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the world of mental health, there's a type of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the gold standard of mental health treatment these days. And there's all sorts of other pieces and parts and things that don't always fit right in with that. But CBT teaches us that our feelings actually don't come from the trigger itself. Our feelings come from the thoughts that trigger generate. And those thoughts lead us to have feelings. Mm-hmm. And those feelings, when we think that way repeatedly, our feelings become bigger and more kind of, we internalize them. And the more we feel something, the more that defines our beliefs about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So our thoughts and our feelings and our beliefs all get pulled down into a place where we might have a thought or might have a belief about ourselves that we're perhaps not good enough, not competent, not,
Yeah.
just not.
Just,
And those beliefs lead us to engage in behaviors, and sometimes those behaviors, if the belief is negative in terms of how we think about ourselves, we then engage in behaviors that can be negative, whether it's, substance abuse or self-harm or, engaging in other risky behaviors toward ourselves or others, or just harmful comments to other people, critical behaviors. And then that takes us right back to our thoughts.
yeah.
And so we can have this whole negative cycle that develops. The one thing, that same trigger, you can choose to think about it one way, or you can choose to think about it differently. And if you think about it one way, it's going to lead you into that negative cycle. And if you choose to think about it differently, then it can take you in a whole different path.
Mm-hmm.
So our thoughts are so incredibly important, and we have control over our brains. We can decide how we're going to think about something.
Yeah.
And consequently, if we can choose how we're going to think about something, that can help us with how we feel and what we believe about ourselves and how we behave.
Gotcha.
So it's I kind of like that triad.
Mm-hmm.
It can get messy at times, but it's an interesting way of thinking, and it's a helpful way to feel that we have some control over ourselves when we sometimes feel messy and out of control.
Yeah, so that's like really good. That's I guess the idea of thing happens, trigger happens, and then trigger causes trigger happens, thought, feeling, and then that feeling compounds itself because you start getting, say if it's anxious, you start getting anxious because you're anxious. So like I've dealt with anxiety in the past, and I'm not so much anymore, but a year ago I had a big loss in my family, and it was my dad's mother, and watching her go through it was a very, very tough experience. And I began experiencing anxiety for the first time ever. And it wasn't actually the anxiety, it wasn't actually the trigger which was the issue. As interesting as that is, I actually was more worried about the fact that I was getting anxious.
Yeah.
I was more
Did you feel out of control?
Oh, so out of control. Because it was as if, like I remember super vividly, I was like sitting in my class, in like one of my classes, writing a test. And then I got to one question, which it was a tougher question. And I don't think I had studied quite enough, but I was good in the class, so I figured I'd do fine. Which is how I usually approach most classes. Probably not great, but yeah. And it put me into a full-on like anxiety attack, and I couldn't think. And there's this really tough place that I guess brings you, where you're like going, you're starting to get pissed off at the thought. So like, how do we learn how to not get pissed off at pissed off the feelings? How do we learn how to not get pissed off at that feeling, at that anxiousness? And how do we like learn how to break that cycle once it's started?
Yeah. I think it's really good that you've been able to identify that feeling anxious is both a feeling in your mind, but it's a feeling in your body. Yeah. And to be able to recognize when you start to feel sweaty or your heart rate increasing or a feeling of dissociating a little bit, disconnecting from the world it can feel like that too. And whatever it feels like to you, to recognize it and then be able to say, this doesn't mean I'm having a heart attack. This doesn't mean that I am out of control. It means that I'm dealing with some anxiety right now.
Yeah.
And what helps me? And what am I going to do about that? I think that's an important question, is to recognize and accept. The term called radical acceptance is to hold a feeling, recognize it is what it is, and it's normal. I don't like it, but it's normal. And this is what I'm going to do about that.
Yeah.
We know that breathing is incredibly important when it comes to manage anxiety, because when we typically have an anxious moment or an anxiety attack episode, we breathe more quickly, we hyperventilate, our whole body goes into this flight versus fight mode, and we either are going to run away or we're going to take it on. And so we need, if we can recognize that, okay, this is my body telling me something. What's it telling me? It's telling me I'm anxious. Okay, why am I anxious? Well, I feel out of control right now. My grandmother just passed away. I'm in an exam that I don't feel well prepared for. So what's going to be the most helpful thing for me to do right now? Breathe.
Yeah.
Just breathe. And whenever I encounter anyone that is dealing with anything that is emotionally overwhelming, the message is always just breathe. And that's the one thing you can control in that moment. And you start to slowly realize, as I take those slow, deep breaths, then it slows down my heart rate. It leads me to think, oh, I do have some control. Maybe I'm not going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
You know, and I am going to regain that sense of composure within myself. I may still have some lingering feelings because they don't just go away.
Yeah.
They gradually dissipate. But breathing helps us, and being, again, giving ourselves positive affirmations, positive messages. I can cope with this. I've been here before. This too shall pass. My favorite expression in the world, and I credit my mother for this, nothing is too good or too bad for too long. And so that tells us, enjoy a situation when it's good, because life isn't always good.
Yeah.
But appreciate too that when things are difficult, this will pass. Nothing is too good or too bad for too long. And we survive.
I really like.
Resilient.
Pardon me?
We survive because we're resilient.
Yeah. I really like that. I think I'll build on that a bit. There was this one analogy. I love Alan Watts. I talk about him a ton. And he has this one lecture that he did where he's talking about the idea of polarities, of that it's both, they're both opposite sides of the same coin. So he said, like, suppose, and I'm paraphrasing, but suppose you were you lived a life of constant joy, all the joys that you could have. It was perfect. Like, you're constantly happy, everything, right? Exactly. And so I think what a lot of people don't realize is that if you lived a life where you were constantly happy, there'd be no contrast. It'd be like taking a photo, for example, and turning the contrast down to 0. There's nothing there. Yeah. It would just be dull. It would be neutral. Same thing. It would be boring. It'd be boring. Take a life where you were, say, all you knew was your life was just, it was torture. It was pure torture. The whole life, that whole lifespan that you were in was pure torture. You wouldn't know that it was horrible because you wouldn't have the polarity to contrast it. So you just go, well, this is life, right? So where I'm trying to get at with that is, like, if you want to feel good, there's a certain bit of that radical acceptance of feeling bad. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
You can't just, we are not one-sided individuals. We're multi-level individuals, and we have to experience emotions in every different realm possible. I don't think that you could ever talk to anyone in all of time who has not experienced each and every one of the emotions that you and I and your listeners and everyone that you and I know. We all know what those feelings are. You say anxiety, everybody knows what that is.
Yeah.
You say loneliness, everyone knows what that is. You say joy, any of the emotions, you know, we need to experience those in order to be a complete individual.
Yeah.
And we're capable of all of those. And because we're capable of experiencing them, we're capable of learning how to manage them, to cope with them in our lives. And sometimes we give over to them, you know, to certain aspects of an emotion more than others. You know, we don't necessarily want anxiety to rule our life when we're in the middle of an exam.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about preparing for an exam and doing that last minute cramming. And my thought is, you're always better to do some deep breathing before you go into an exam rather than do that last minute cramming, because the last minute cramming gets your head in that place where you can't really think. The breathing opens your mind and opens you up to being able to write that exam because you're not in that stressed place as much.
Yeah, well, it's like, I think every single time that I've tried to do the last minute cramming thing, it's more of, I'll open my book, look at it, go, I guess I have to rush, look through it really quick, go, well, I picked up nothing. Maybe I might like repeat some sentence that I wrote down in my notes 3 times in my head. It doesn't end up helping me. Something that, just kind of jumping back earlier to what you were saying about everyone feeling or has felt these same emotions or these same feelings, it sounds like what you're kind of getting at is that we're not alone in this. Not alone at all.
No, absolutely. It is, in fact, I think that in some ways, as counterintuitive as this is going to sound, COVID, I think, has brought people together or can bring people together in ways that is unique to this time. I have connected with more of friends and acquaintances from various aspects of my life, whether it's elementary school, high school, university, work experiences, a gym I used to go to, old friends. It's, you know, it's, in some ways, it has served to enrich my experience of life because I have time and I am pursuing reaching out. At the same time, my home relationships are really good because we have the advantage of finding new ways of spending time together. You can't just rely on the old stuff that you used to do all the time because some of it you can't do. And you need to freshen things up. You need to do things a little differently. You need to try something new because, you know, you want to keep your relationships alive. And so how you do that is kind of up to you as an individual and your friends and family to figure out how that's going to work best for you. But I think for many people, it will serve the purpose of expanding their social world. If you don't give in to the, oh, I have nothing to do, I have no one to talk to, I have, you know, that negative kind of messaging that that we give ourselves that feed the negative emotions.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's really awesome to hear that, like, this whole world situation has been positive in that way in your life. I can even say in my world that although I'm not making as many new friends as I used to, I am making the new friends I do make. I find that they tend to be closer now, because it's not like they're social friends who I just hang out with in a group, and I don't really know them too well, but we see each other every weekend or something like that. But rather, it's more like talking to someone on FaceTime, heck, playing video games with someone. I'm not a huge gamer, but I sometimes do, or going on a hike, which are very one-on-one, intimate activities. So, like, from that perspective, I think, like, it's very easy to forget how rich the relationships you can form are right now compared to the ones that you used to be able to. It's almost like the social hierarchy that exists in, say, a school environment has been put away, because at least throughout the lockdowns, I don't know, I'm not going to school in person, so my experience of it is, of course, going to be very, very different than some of my viewers' experiences. But even then, I do know that you're not just going to go hang out with any random person right now. If you're going to spend any time with anyone, it's going to be someone who you know, because you need to for your own safety.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Really taking the time to, like, experience your friends in a way that you haven't experienced them before can be one of the most beautiful things ever, because you'll build up relationships that won't just be high school relationships, maybe. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
That will carry. Yeah.
I think that the people that you connect with in times of unusual times, whatever those unusual times might be, and we can certainly call COVID times unusual times, but it's, your best friends are not the people that you meet in the Dominican Republic on a beach.
No.
I mean,
like
you
that.
might develop a friendship that way, but it's more the people that you share experiences with, and the more broad-based those experiences are, the more emotionally deep those experiences are, the closer those people are going to be to you.
For sure. It's like one of those situations where, say, I don't know, something scary, bad, good, whatever it is, something that involves a strong emotion that both people can experience at the same time, can have this bonding force that you don't even realize consciously, intellectually. You don't go, wow, when I'm going to use it as an example because it's the best thing that comes to mind. When I drove my car into the ditch and my buddy was in the passenger seat with me, damn, I got to say, that was something funny. And now we're closer because of it.
Yeah.
And we were both terrified. It ended up being okay. We were both terrified, though. And as horrible as that is, we got to share this beautiful thing, which was both of us kind of falling apart for a second. Like, it was a very pure moment. Rather than something more superficial, such as that person just happening to be in the same friend group as me, but I'm not really friends with them. Because it's like, I don't know, for myself, I've looked back on, like, last year, for example, last school year, and I look back to, like, people I'm hanging out with, and they're awesome people, but I think, like, I wasn't really close with a lot of them, and that's a bummer. And it was tough to be, because there was so much going on, and in not being close with them, it also meant that my closer friends, in trying to keep those relationships going when I wasn't close with them, it meant that my closer friends, I almost grew distant from them because I didn't get to actually give them the time that relationship needed.
So are you suggesting then that being busy and always going and doing, that took away from some of the opportunities for deeper relationships?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so just looking through some of the stuff that I wrote down. So, oh yeah, here's an interesting one that this is something that came through my mind. So it's kind of a little bit of a pivot, a big pivot, but like back to that feeling horrible thing, like when we're in that place, I've talked about it before, and I feel like you'd be able to touch on it really well, is we can get addicted to feeling really bad. We can get addicted to it. It's like,
because it's the normal. It's where you're comfortable. You may be uncomfortable in your discomfort, but you're familiar. It's familiar. It's the easy go-to kind of place. It's work to change how you feel about something. If you have a pretty not determined, but a pretty prescribed way how you think about situations, and how you feel about them, that's your go-to place. You see that person, you think that thing, you feel that way.
Yeah.
So if you want to change that, it's a process. And yeah, I think we can. I don't know if we're addicted to it so much, or it's just,
it's easy.
It's the easy way. It's the easy place to be because it's familiar, and we do seek out the familiar because we feel more in control when when we're unsettled with the way we feel about something. That's not necessarily comfortable. So sometimes it's more comfortable to feel, even if it's a negative feeling.
Yeah.
So maybe there's an addiction to that element of just seeking comfort.
Yeah, when I say addiction, I think, seeking comfort in, that's really weird though. I think we have to be careful with the way that we say seeking comfort in discomfort, because I guess from a mindful perspective, that could be seen as like acceptance, being able to be comfortable with the discomfort. But the reason why I use the word addiction is because I know that there are times when I feel down, and frankly, as much as I say that I want to feel better, my actions don't resemble it, because in reality, under the surface, I'm locked in. I want to feel horrible because heck, I can, and it's easy. I
think sometimes we want to give ourselves permission to feel a little sorry for ourselves. I think that's part of the normal human condition too. Sometimes we just want to, just feel bad because there's stuff to feel bad about, and that's okay. It's all right to give yourself over to it and allow it to kind of engulf you and wrap yourself up in some blankets and, lie down on the couch and not feel like going anywhere.
Yeah.
Until that becomes to the point where it's interfering with your ability to function.
Yeah.
And that's how, when we start to identify something as having a mental health concern, it's not when we're feeling anxious. It's not when we're feeling sad. It's when those things or those emotions start to take over to the point that we're not taking care of ourselves. We're not eating properly. We're maybe using substances to help ourselves feel something.
Yeah.
So sorry, something just happened on the computer that sounded kind of weird, so I got distracted. But
Oh, I think that might be. I hear a Velcro. Someone putting on some Velcro shoes through the door here.
Oh.
So that
I
might
don't know if
be
that was it or not, but
maybe.
anyway, yeah. So it's there's nothing wrong with just kind of giving over to how you feel, but just not allowing it to take over your life.
Okay.
And then what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to you taking some power back and saying, I'm not going to let this control me. I am going to balance it out. And it doesn't mean you're getting rid of it altogether. It just means that, okay, this has taken up too much weight on the scale, and I need to bring up another aspect of who I am, because I'm not all that. I'm not just this person. I am also this person, and I'm this person, and I'm this person. And how do I want to be when I have the energy for it? How do I get to a version of my best self?
Yeah. All right. I like that a lot. So we're kind of in what I'd say is the last like 5 to 10 minutes of kind of the time that we supposed to set aside. And there's a topic that you'd mentioned you'd like to touch on specifically. It's a heavier one.
Yeah. Well, I think as we've talked about intense emotions and feeling those things very, very strongly at times, to the point that it can lead us to have thoughts of helplessness and hopelessness. And for many people, that can lead them to having suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts are not uncommon. It would be fair to say that most people occasionally have had thoughts of self-harm or have wanting to end their life because they want to end the pain that they're experiencing. And there is always help for that. It's really important that people not give in to those feelings, because those are temporary feelings too. Just like every other thought that we have, every other emotional experience that we have, feeling suicidal, this too shall pass. People will, unfortunately, the people that don't survive suicide aren't around to tell you this, but many people who have been suicidal will tell you that I don't feel like this now. And that is certainly possible. And it's important for people to know that, to reach out, to talk to someone, to write your thoughts down on paper. I like Tara's suggestion from an earlier podcast of writing your thoughts down, journaling. And if you want to get rid of it, to burn it and to send it back to the universe. That's a great way of being able to put it out there and get rid of it. But sometimes you're still left with some pretty intense thoughts. And so seeking out the suicide hotlines, I know that you've thought about having reference to those, to that information.
Yeah, we're going to be having those on the Labyrinth Thought website, which is now up. We haven't put that in yet, but yeah, those suicide hotlines.
Let me give you some then.
Resources.
I'm just going to, there's a suicide prevention hotline, 833-456-4566. The kids help phone, 1-800-668-6868. And locally in Simcoe area, 705-728-5044. Those are important numbers to have readily available so that you can reach out if those thoughts become so much that you can't reach out to your friends, your parents. Yeah, it's a heavy topic, but we need to talk about it.
For sure. And if I may ask, with your background in psychiatry, what would you say to what should someone expect if they're in that position and they're calling that hotline, because it can be almost kind of scary. Like, I don't know, I haven't had to, but I know that I've had to call 911 and stuff like that. And I can imagine that the feeling would be similar. It's a very weird, like, holy shit, I'm here.
Yeah, and maybe that out of control feeling as well. Yeah. You can expect empathy. You can expect someone to listen to you. You can expect someone to validate your feelings and to normalize your feelings. And you can expect that by talking to someone, you'll release some of that internal tension that's built up, and hopefully have a sense of, and what can I do now? They'll help to guide you through the recommendations that might help you either in the moment, or if you need to have to consult with someone virtually or personally for support.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you so much for listing those out. I didn't expect you were going to, but it was great that you did, because I know that if someone were to be in that position and they're listening through this and they hear us just talk about this and not actually put the resources out there readily available, it might not seem like the path is so direct. It might not seem like help is just 10 digits away. Yeah.
And those are 24-hour lines. And don't give up. You know, if you get a busy signal, it's because somebody else is using the service at that time. Call again. Yeah. You know,
that's a sign that you're not alone in your struggle.
Yeah, absolutely.
If anything, you can see that in a weird way. I don't want to say as a good thing, as a reassuring thing, that there are other people experiencing the same thing as you, and that you're going to be able to make it through it. And although I can't personally really speak to it with that degree of, I have the knowledge but not the understanding of what it's like to be in that position, but I know of people who are, and I know that, guys, like, this stuff isn't you. This is just something that you're experiencing, and you're gonna get through it. No matter what it is, if it's that you're suicidal, if it's that you're self-harming, if it's that you're just straight up depressed, you're gonna make it through, because there are a lot of other people who have done it as well, who have done it despite their circumstances. And in the most special way possible. What you're going through isn't special. It's the same experience that everyone else is, and you've got this.
Yeah. That's important to know. We are part of a global universe of individuals who connect in all sorts of different ways, and as alone as someone might feel, that is not in fact the reality. It's what you're experiencing, but there are others who care about you and who will help you get through.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Carolyn. That was an awesome conversation, and
great to talk to you, Bryden.
Thank you. Really put a bright
I wish all of your viewers happier times ahead. I know that now is a unique experience, but hopefully we will all come through this in a way that with a new appreciation for the joys and the opportunities that lie ahead of us, recognizing that we can put this in our past, grow from it, and move forward with a life that holds meaning for you.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for tuning in. That was Carolyn Murton. I had an absolutely wonderful conversation with her. I hope you guys enjoyed, got something from that. Remember, if you're not doing well right now, all those resources are available to you. They'll also be available on our website, labyrinthofthought.com. All the rest of the information on Carolyn and those resources will be there. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. Sending out love.